Yeah. Well, we have slightly different experiences because Jake's from Idaho and I am a transplant. So he can speak to kind of growing up here and kind of what it's been like. But I think for me, I actually moved here after being exposed from Treefort Music Fest. So I already knew it as kind of like a music hub just because of the festival. Considering the festival's pretty large in a very small city, it actually brings a lot of activity and energy to Boise year round, really. So I got plugged into the Treefort music community, and I think that's been a big asset in terms of just networking with other musicians, having opportunities to play. So Boise's surprisingly vibrant in the music scene, considering how small we are and off the beaten path. But things like Treefort have brought more artists through from touring and on the tour circuit.
Yeah, I am. I lived in New York City for a long time, so I can probably speak directly to that comparison. And I moved to New York City from Boise, and then back to Boise from New York City. And the thing I really love about living here is that I have pretty much, I have more time on my hands, and I think time is the greatest asset to creativity. Time to educate yourself, time to explore new ideas, time to connect with people. And that, coupled with that the cost of living here is still substantially more affordable than a lot of places, so that you can afford a good quality of life outside of your struggle to create and produce art and share it with people. I know, like, I'm from Florida. I moved to Idaho when I was 10 years old, but just the West, the desolate spaces, the desert, the big mountains, the pine trees, the forests. There's just a lot of kind of earth energy and a lot of earth magic here that I think you really have to live in to be able to authentically create, Western music. Cactus Mood isn't exactly a country band, but there's a lot of Western sounds in this. I'm very much a country and Western musician outside of this group through and through. And the landscape and the space definitely, sort of affects my energy and how I approach that, and why I sort of, that aesthetic is my lifestyle. So it certainly informs what I'm attracted to and what I create.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we don't spend a lot of time in the car or on the subway or things like that here, like everything's close and you get out to the mountains as much as you can and hang out by the river and your friends are all 5 minutes away. So it's a different kind of vibe in some ways, I think, in terms of just like your focus, you're not distracted by a lot of the big city stuff.
But I also want to comment, like, when I lived in New York City, and the inspiration comes from so many places. Like, I feel like now, like, you have to be a little more focused maybe and bring the inspiration from within a little bit more. It has to come from more of a place of self-motivation versus, like, if you're in Austin, Texas, or Los Angeles or New York City, you can just, like, go sit in one of the parks or something, and just life's happening all around you, and you hear somebody talking on the bench next to you, and there's just so much more humanity around in that sense. So there's sort of more of just sort of like rapid fire, lights going on and off in the urban areas, where I think where we live now, the creativity maybe comes from more of a place of like introspection rather than external stimulation.
Yeah, it's a collection of songs that I started writing when I was kind of in this transition between moving from Portland to Boise in my own life. And so a couple of the songs were written there, and then a good chunk of them were written when I was here, when I moved here. And so, I didn't really realize that until we put the record together, and you kind of look back and go, oh, this all sort of happened during this chapter of my life. I had the kind of bare bones of these songs, and I started working with Jake and we started developing them. And then, we ended up selecting which ones went on the album because we thought that they worked well together. But ultimately there's a lot of songs we have that aren't on the record too. And I think we chose these because they fit well together thematically and musically. And so there are some of those themes of transition and home and travel and uncertainty and adventure, and some of those themes are pretty consistent. But sometimes you don't even realize that until it's all kind of done.
There were some other songs that Chelsea had written that we had been playing that were definitely like a little, maybe have a little bit more of a lightheartedness to them, different energy. And I think we chose these 8 because, like she said, they seemed like they wanted to go together. And I think when we started talking about this, it was like last fall, and it was maybe kind of moody and dark, and maybe that informed the mood of like, let's pick the 8 that are moody and dark, and let's put those. They seem like they just really want. And then as we kind of wrote them on a piece of paper and just kind of looked at the track listing, it was like, oh yeah, those all definitely seem like they want to live together on an album.
I feel like they got moodier as they went along too. Like
Yeah, definitely moodier as they went along.
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, when I was younger, just like was obsessed with Joni Mitchell growing up, really obsessed with those kind of classic singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell or Leonard Cohen or people like that that really combine poetry with interesting melodies. So I would say that was a big influence. And then as I got older, I was really interested in, people like Feist or Emily Haynes or Beth Gibbons or, other female singer-songwriters that have a really recognizable voice, even, Joanna Newsom, like people who you hear their voice and you're like, oh, I know who that is. And they have not only a distinct vocals, but lyrics that jump off the page, lyrics in a way that you haven't heard anyone turn a phrase. So I would say those are some of my vocal influences.
With these songs, there was definitely like guitar players like Dwayne Eddy and Dick Dale, kind of 50s, 60s surf stuff, The Ventures. I love those sounds. I love making up instrumentals and stuff like that. So a lot of that, a lot of for the soundscapey stuff, specifically like The Cure's album Disintegration, that's just sort of like just droney synths, super jangly guitars. I love that. I love new wave. I love a lot of just that kind of like the age of the analog synthesizer in the 80s combined with guitar music, the Fender guitar sound. So yeah, the Dwayne Eddy, Dick Dale, The Ventures, The Cure. For the kind of acoustic side of things, I'm a huge Neil Young fan. I love the way he plays acoustic guitar and the way a lot of that sounds, and that definitely sort of found its way into these songs, doubling acoustic guitars and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably what was on my mind when I heard these songs, when I was listening to them. It was sort of like Dick Dale, Dwayne Eddy, Neil Young, The Cure, which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition of sounds to put together.
For sure, for sure.
Some classic rock vibes, I think, with like indie stuff stacked on top. I'm really interested in things that are timeless and not like necessarily what's trendy, I think. So that's probably a reason that I'm drawn to some like classic forms of music. But I'm not a purist, I'm not a traditionalist. So like I might be drawn to some of these traditional forms, but then I want to build on that. I want to play with that. I like music that you can't always tell what year it's from. The Beach Boys is an example. Like, is that, if you didn't know better, you might think that's more modern than it is. Or thinking of like another psych kind of band like Olivia Tremor Control or bands like that too. You're like, could be the 60s, could be the early 2000s, could be now, because they're kind of creating their own world and it kind of lives in its own thing versus, oh, they're using that effect that everybody used in 2005, that really dates music. So I'm way more interested in things that are like timeless, but also fresh. And so I think that's like what we were trying to go for.
Yeah, I guess I don't really think of Cactus Moon as really having any retro intention, I don't, at least I don't think about that. And in this band, like I have another band that's very much like a 1950s, early 60s sounding country band. And we don't really, even that band might be more retro, but we don't like, it's just that we all share that aesthetic, that draw to it, and that's just what it sounds like. But for us, I don't know, like that's interesting because I hadn't even thought of that. Like all I know is like when I recorded that song on, January 22nd, 2025, that's just how I felt that day and what I thought sounded good, so I don't know, and I think that it's always cool to give a nod to things that that are from the past that you're interested in. I mean, I love all music. I'm a really open-minded listener. I'll listen to like Lana Del Rey and Howlin' Wolf and Ray Price all in the same 10 minutes, so yeah, I don't know. I don't really think we didn't really have any. We weren't like, oh, we're trying to make something that sounds spaghetti western, or that just happened to be the way I was playing guitar at that time, and I had just broken my finger, so I could literally only play guitar one certain way, which was that way. And so that's also why it sounds a lot like that, because I couldn't really like finger pick or do anything else, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think there's kind of the writing process, and then there's kind of also the visual identity as a band as we're out there in the world. Like a lot of the photography and the visuals that we developed are from right around here in Idaho. Within 2 hours, we went to the mountains that we go to on the weekend for fun. It wasn't an inauthentic thing. If anything, it's very authentic to kind of the way we live here. So I wanted to bring in landscape elements because I do a lot of writing outside. Jake's super into the outdoors too. So like, I think the landscape is a feature. It's a feature to draw on. In terms of like the writing process, like I love thinking through the visuals and because I'm seeing a picture in my head, I'm seeing a movie in my head, and then I want to write that out. And yeah, I hear music in my head all the time. Like I'm in my own movie and there's a soundtrack playing at all times. 100%, I'm guilty of being the star of my own movie. And so I think sometimes the music comes out that way too, right? Like, oh, this is the part where it gets really tense. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I love the twists and turns that, cinema brings us to. I've worked in indie film for years. So I think that definitely comes into the way that I'm interested in building tension and, having bridges to different emotions, and then how I resolve that tension.
Yeah, I think that, to the sonic palette and the sort of idea of soundtrack and cinematic space, I was definitely, I think in a lot of the music I create in this band and outside as well, like it's, the landscape definitely, and like I said earlier, like informs my energy, and I wanted people to feel that when they listen to this, and very consciously tried to leave a lot of it feeling really spacious and really expansive. Like here, you can go stand on this mountain and you can see like 80 miles in any direction, like you can get way up there and really feel space around you. And I know I'm not Chelsea's also a filmmaker, I'm not, but I watch a lot of films and I love soundtracks. And someone that comes to mind for me, like that you hear and you sort of connotate with the space and see the visuals, is the Italian composer Ennio Morricone, who did all the old Western soundtracks, right? You just see like the desert and horses galloping, and part of that obviously is because it's connected to those old Western films. But it's sort of the majesty in that is that you just suddenly you just have that vision in your head, and I think that's obviously we're not making big orchestral pieces for a film, but in an element, that's something I hope people feel when they listen to this.
Yeah, so the full album is streaming on all platforms, and we have it on vinyl. We're doing a release show this weekend that we're really excited about here in Boise at the Shrine, and with me, Seema Travers and Prairie Blue. So that'll be a big celebration, and then from there, we're just going to keep playing shows, and definitely want to release some more singles. Probably be a while before we do another full album.
Yeah, maybe next year. But we're gonna put 2 singles out on Halloween.
We've got some things cooking already.
We want to satisfy our inner goth, and we're gonna put out some Halloween songs.
Yeah, it's gonna get spookier, probably more moody, and then yeah, I think sky's the limit. We might tour. We might just play more shows. We'll kind of see how things evolve. But
okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, Boise has a lot of good country bands. It's also kind of a punk rock and metal town.
A lot of bluegrass.
A lot of bluegrass, a lot of punk, a lot of country.
A lot of indie bands.
A lot of indie bands. Yeah, and I guess that's where we fit in a little bit too. But yeah, and I think it's a small enough scene that there's really room for everybody, I feel like. And so, you have the country scene's pretty firm. You got your specific venues, you got your honky tonk nights, all those kind of things. And then, but we all share space in the same venues downtown. A lot of us play in each other's bands. I'd say it's a pretty tight-knit kind of a place, but there's still a lot of room for growth here. And I think people are pushing artistic boundaries because we want to be bigger than the small town that we're into. And, you know, we're not like, we don't want to be like confined just because we're off the main path and we're not on the coast here. You know, there's actually a lot of going on here that I think people would be interested in. So I'm just excited. I'm excited to share this music and, you know, have maybe somebody go, Boise, Idaho, what's going on there? I haven't heard anything about music in a little while there. So that's just my hope, is that people look into it and come check it out.
It's funny that you said that someone told you that there was cowboy music in Denver and you were like, what? And that's so funny because, like, I feel like anywhere there's cowboys and there's agriculture, there's better country music than anywhere else, you know? And that's funny. But yeah, the scene here is so diverse. Like there's really traditional stuff, there's really innovative stuff. It's all over the place. And like I think that there's sort of because there's not really like one specific tradition ruling the, you know, like if you go to Nashville, it's kind of, I mean, there's obviously a lot of people making a lot of different music, but you know, it's by and large known for being pop country music centric, you know, and it kind of definitely like is the thing that is the primary maybe genre or something. Whereas here there's not. There's a little bit of everything, and there's freedom in that because you don't have to go out and play one kind of music to appeal to one kind of, or appease, I should say, one kind of audience. You know, you can really sort of kind of dip in and out. Like, I'm not a bluegrass musician, but I play a lot of really traditional country, and I play a lot of really far out psychedelia and a lot of, you know, songwriter indie, and it's cool because there's space for all of it. And I think generally people, the audience here seems to be pretty open-minded and just excited that things are happening. You know, I think it's changed, especially after the kind of COVID pandemic, and a lot of things went from being like I haven't done I guess I did like a long tour last year, but I think the days of doing like long 2-month tours are kind of over for a lot of people. It's hard. And so I think kind of online presence, obviously. I don't know, I had a record come out a year and a half ago on a label in Los Angeles, California. And, you know, I just wrote him a letter and we connected. And, you know, so I think I don't know, for me, it's kind of grassroots, I guess, you know, traveling, playing. Boise is now kind of in the touring circuit for a lot of bands. You know, Boise, Seattle, Portland are kind of we're kind of in the loop with Seattle and Portland now, I think. And that's credited very largely to Treefort and Duck Club Booking, who built all these great venues downtown, the Shrine Social Club and the Treefort Music Hall, and have a lot of really, you know, big acts that play anywhere playing here like 7 nights a week now. So that's been huge. So I think that there's, I guess to answer your question directly, like I think Treefort Music Fest and Duck Club Booking has had a massive benefit to artists here, just by opening these venues and doing such a fantastic job of bringing people here. I mean, we have live music every night of the week, and I'm not just talking like local bands, you know, like we had like, you know, like Jeff Tweedy, Marty Stewart, you know, like I'm so out of the loop with a lot of the more modern bands, but like the Treefort Music Hall has something going on like literally every night, and they're selling tickets for like 500 to 1,000 people every night, you know. So I mean, that's probably been the number one way that we're kind of on the map now, is that I think we are a music city through and through, you know. Like I can't say because I didn't live in Austin, Texas 20 years ago, but I know people who are like, man, it's kind of like what Austin was like 20 years ago or something like that, you know. So I think that's probably to credit. There is a scene here, and it doesn't feel as like I lived here in my early 20s and it felt really reclusive then, and it doesn't feel that way now.